Shalom, welcome back to the Zera Shimshon series. Why does the Torah begin with the creation of heaven and earth? Rashi asks that the Torah could have begun with the first mitzvah commanded to the people of Israel. HaKodesh Hazeh Lachem, meaning this month shall be for you. Instead, it begins with Bereishis, with creation, the first human beings, the forefathers, Egypt, and redemption. At first, that question sounds almost impossible. How could the Torah leave out Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aharon, and the Exodus? Surely, we need to know who these people are before hearing the Mitzvot. The Zera Shimshon explains that Rashi is asking something deeper. Why must the Torah begin by establishing the meaning and purpose of the world before it begins telling us what to do? In fact, the Zera Shimshon hears two questions inside Rashi's words. First, if the Mitzvot are the central covenant between Hashem and Israel, why are they not placed first? Second, even if the Torah needs a creation narrative, why does it begin specifically with the word Bereishis, a word that suggests the world was created for the sake of something called Reishis? The answer begins with a midrash. The word Bereishis can be understood as for the sake of Reishis, for the sake of that which is called the beginning. And one of the things called Reishis is the Torah. Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. The Torah was not placed into an already completed universe as an afterthought. It was the blueprint from which the universe was formed. This is why the world has a structure capable of receiving mitzvot. Time can become sacred. Food can become sacred. Speech, money, marriage, work, land, rest, and the body can all become vessels of holiness, because creation was designed around Torah from the beginning. The Zera Shimshon connects this to the teaching that history unfolds through three periods: 2,000 years of desolation, 2,000 years of Torah, and 2,000 years associated with Mashiach. During the first period, Torah was present but concealed. During the second, it entered human life and became a source of delight on earth. He reads the verse in Mishlei that calls Torah Hashem's Amon, his craftsman's instrument or hidden treasure. During the first 2,000 years, the blueprint remained largely concealed. In the next 2000, Torah stood upon the earth while still reaching into heaven. This explains why the verse speaks both of delight before Hashem and delight within the inhabited world. Torah never stops belonging to heaven. Yet, once it is given, earth also becomes a place where divine delight can dwell. Before the giving of the Torah, heaven was understood as Hashem's domain, and earth as the domain of humanity. At Sinai, that separation was open. Moshe ascended, Hashem descended, and the Shekinah came to meet Israel. The sages describe Sinai like a wedding. Hashem is the groom, Israel is the bride, and the Torah and Mitzvot are the gift through which the bond of Kiddushin takes effect. That creates a halakhic question. An object used for Kiddushin must possess value. But how can the value of Torah be measured? Its wisdom is without end. Its measure is broader than the sea. No person can calculate its full worth. The Zera Shimshon answers that value can be measured by benefit. What does Torah give? It gives the continued existence of the world. The world was created through 10 divine utterances, and the world remains sustained through Torah and Mitzvot. Therefore, the value of the Torah can be expressed as the value of the entire created order. The point is not that Torah can be reduced to a monetary price. The point is that its benefit is not vague. If the mitzvot preserve the world's purpose, then their value is as real as the world itself. The 10 utterances become, in a symbolic sense, the valuation document for the gift of Kiddushin. Israel is not being bound to an unknown object. Hashem first reveals the creation whose life depends upon the gift he is giving. This transforms the opening of Bereishis. The creation account is not a delay before the commandments. It is the appraisal of the wedding gift. It is worth a world because a world depends upon it. The verse Rashi cites says, "The force of his deeds he told his people, in order to give them the inheritance of nations." The Zera Shimshon hears two meanings in the force of Hashem's deeds. First, Torah is the sustaining force of creation. This explains why the Torah begins by describing the world created through the 10 utterances. The mitzvot are not isolated religious actions. They uphold the purpose and continuing order of creation. Second, Torah is the originating force of creation. The world was not merely sustained by Torah after it appeared. The world was created for Torah in the first place. That is why the Torah begins specifically with Bereishis. Creation belongs to the purpose for which it was made. This distinction matters. If Torah only kept an independently existing world alive, then a nation that ignored Torah might lose spiritual reward, but its ownership of the world could remain untouched. But if the world was created for Torah, then possessions themselves are entrusted within that purpose. The Torah is not merely one activity performed inside creation. This leads into Rashi's discussion of Eretz Yisrael. The nations may accuse Israel of being bandits for conquering the land of the 7 Canaanite nations. The Zera Shimshon asks why conquest alone would create that accusation. Nations commonly conquer territory. He also points out that the land had originally fallen within the portion of Shem, while the Canaanites descended from Cham. His answer is that the accusation concerns more than ordinary warfare. Israel's conquest was openly miraculous. The nations could argue that if the land already belonged to Israel, Hashem could have handed it over without war. And if it did not belong to them, how could supernatural conquest establish a legitimate claim? Rashi's response reaches beneath every human claim of ownership. The entire earth belongs to Hashem because He created it. The division of the earth among human beings never removes it from its creator. Hashem can entrust land to one nation for a time and later entrust it to another. The Zera Shimshon compares this to land held under the authority of a king. The person who fulfills the obligations attached to the land retains it. When those obligations are abandoned, the king may transfer it. In this reading, the 7 nations lost their claim because they rejected the 7 mitzvot given to the descendants of Noah. Israel received the land in order to serve Hashem there. The miraculous war had 2 purposes. It punished entrenched wickedness, and it publicly revealed that the transfer took place by divine will. The war itself, therefore, answers part of the accusation. Hashem could have removed the inhabitants instantly, but then the moral reason for the transfer would have remained hidden. The long struggle exposed judgment, while the miracles exposed consent. ordinary battle showed that the former holders were being called to account. Supernatural assistance showed that Israel was not acting through human power alone. The same event functioned both as punishment and as a public declaration of stewardship. The Zera Shimshon also offers another dimension. Before Sinai, earth was the human domain. After the Shekinah descended, earth became a place of divine dwelling, with Eretz Yisrael as its center. A land meant to manifest Hashem's presence could not remain permanently ordered around idolatry. This teaching does not make possession a reason for pride. It makes possession a responsibility. Land, wealth, knowledge, and influence are never absolute property in the deepest sense. They are trusts from the Creator. And the question is always whether they are being used in harmony with the purpose for which the world exists. The chapter then asks a surprising question. How did Moshe actually acquire the Torah? The Zera Shimshon treats the giving of Torah through the language of halakhic acquisition. An object can be acquired through Messiah by drawing it into one's domain, through hakbahah by lifting it, or through mesirah by receiving it through an act of handing over. Yet, every possibility seems blocked. Torah was in heaven, the domain of the giver. Messiah does not normally work inside the seller's private domain. Mesirah also requires an appropriate domain. Hakbahah is impossible because Torah is infinitely vast and cannot simply be lifted. This is why the separation between heaven and earth had to be suspended at Sinai. Sinai became, so to speak, a shared domain. Hashem bent heaven toward earth. Moshe ascended, and the Torah could be drawn from the domain of the giver toward the receiver. Revelation is not merely information sent downward. Heaven and earth are brought close enough for a transfer of ownership and responsibility to occur. Moshe does not remain a passive listener at the foot of the mountain. He rises, receives, draws, and carries the revealed Torah into the human domain. But another difficulty remains. How can anyone move an infinite Torah? The Zera Shimshon compares it to the halakhic discussion of acquiring a very large ship. One opinion says that moving even part of it can establish acquisition because the small movement begins the movement of the whole. Another opinion requires the entire object to be moved from its original place. Moshe did not attempt to remove the hidden, infinite essence of Torah from heaven. He acquired the revealed Torah destined to enter the world. Every teaching, interpretation, and true insight that would unfold through the sages of every generation. The Zohar teaches that an aspect of Moshe's soul extends through the Torah scholars of later generations. This means that the Torah, drawn down by Moshe at Sinai, included the portions that future souls would reveal. What appears centuries later as a new insight was already included within the movement begun at Sinai. In this way, even the stricter view can be understood. The revealed Torah was moved as a whole because Moshe's spiritual reach included the generations that would unfold it. Each faithful scholar moves a portion, yet all those movements belong to the one great drawing down that began with Moshe. Torah was therefore given completely, yet it continues to arrive. Every sincere act of learning draws another part of that original gift into lived human understanding. A person opening a sacred text is not merely studying the past. That person is participating in the continuing movement of Sinai. The final part of the chapter returns to the first mitzvah. This month shall be for you. Another commentator suggested that the book of Shemos does not begin there because the passage recalls Israel's lack of mitzvot in Egypt. They needed the Korban Pesach and circumcision as merits for redemption. And beginning with that fact might have exposed their dishonor. The Zera Shimshon challenges this. Israel had not yet received most mitzvot, and the crushing conditions of slavery could explain their spiritual poverty. Their condition was not comparable to later failures after they had already been commanded. He, therefore, gives a more precise answer. The exile had been decreed for 400 years, but Israel left Egypt after only 210. They had descended to 49 levels of impurity and had to be redeemed before becoming completely absorbed. Because the Egyptian exile ended early, further exiles became necessary. Had they possessed the full merit of mitzvot, the entire decree could have been completed in Egypt, and the later exiles would not have been needed. The Korban Pesach was therefore linked not only with Hashem passing over the Israelite homes, but with his skipping over part of the appointed term. Redemption came in haste because waiting longer would have placed the people beyond recovery. The Zera Shimshon reads the opening darkness and desolation of Bereishis as an allusion to those 4 exiles. He also hears within Bereishis an echo of Bris Eish, a covenant of fire, connecting exile with purification. So Bereishis itself contains an indirect reminder of Israel's lack of mitzvot in Egypt. Rashi can still ask why the Torah does not begin with the first mitzvah, because either opening carries some hint of that weakness. The book of Shemos is different. It begins, "These are the names of the children of Israel," praising them for preserving their names and identity, a merit connected with redemption. Shemos begins the Exodus story with praise rather than with even a small note of dishonor. Bereishis, however, begins where it does because a greater truth must be established. The Torah begins with creation because mitzvot are more than rules. They are the purpose built into the world, the value of the covenant, the bond between heaven and earth, the condition of sacred stewardship, and the force through which creation continues. Before the Torah says, "Do this," it tells us what kind of reality we inhabit. The world belongs to Hashem. It was shaped through Torah. It is sustained through Torah. And when a human being performs a mitzvah, that person is not adding religion to ordinary life. That person is helping creation become what it was designed to be. Shalom.